we can start our discussions, and of course our event dedicated to the Euro integration, and our colleagues, they have deep practices for many years in Brussels, but also in their countries, in their domestic policy, which connected to the Euro integration. And we brought here audience, which is deeply connected also in EU as a process of EU accession in Ukraine. We have here civil society experts, also our deputy ministers, representatives of the parliament, both members of the parliament, but also secretariats and different commissions of the parliament. So we hope that this discussion will be very practical, because people expect to hear from you some hints and probably very practical advices. Because we have ambition about the fast track, we have ambition about to make the history. And from this ambition, probably I will start from Olga Stefanishyna, who is already making a history. And today we've been discussing this absolutely unprecedented application to the candidate status, then getting the candidate status, and of course our first meeting and opening of the negotiations. So with this really fast track, which is historical probably for EU integration for many, many other countries, can you please tell us what would be our next ambitions and priorities, and how do you see our next steps?
Thank you, Elena. Good to see you, colleagues here in the panel, all the other advisors we've met today, and basically you see the representation of all we have been discussing. Very rarely I can hardly see any unfamiliar face in this audience. And this audience is both from government, parliament, civil society, think tanks, and all of the people, which is like a small part of those engaged in our accession on a daily basis to that extent. So this is the army, the battalion, the European battalion. But also I shared today some ambition we have as the negotiating team and as a government, as a country, for this and the next year. I think there's a lot to process from our advisors, which is, as always, doesn't fit perfectly to the calendar of European bureaucracy and probably to the overall enlargement calendar. But I think the major next task that we have is to make sure that we do not waste a single political moment for a decision to be taken. And after the formal accession talks started on 25th of June, this also requires much more steps than just mobilizing the political will to move through the political transformations and reforms which were on the surface, right? So this is now diving deeper and deeper into sectoral transformations and legal approximation, and backing up every step you're approaching Commission with a significant, strong background and analytics. So it becomes really, really serious. Although on a public surface, our people, our populations would still see the same messages, that we have this political target to open the accessions, to open the chapters, close the chapters, and join the European Union. But in between, the amount of job to be done is increased in dozens and dozens of times. So, but we have been preparing for that, and I'm really happy that our Nordic Baltic group is coming here today, particularly this moment where we have started the accession talks, when we have established the negotiation team, which gives a pretty much structure of our accession, because we have the same people in the ministries in charge of policy making, in charge of the accession process, and with me leading all the negotiation process as the chief negotiator. But also, I just remember 2 years ago, when we just have been granted the candidate status with the French presidency. As I always put emphasis on, Swedish government started its presidency in European Union, and it was really hard to believe that we can reach the goal before the end of 2023 that Ukraine will open the accession talks. We thought that it was not possible altogether with all 27 member states, but we are there. We thought that basically it will not be possible to start the accession talks so fast already at the end of June, and we have been going through this past knowing that at every step of the way there might be no unity on making the decision, and this coffee break card we've already played in December 2023. But we are there, and that also, this tough process allowed us to explore our capacity, also to build our ammunition skills, and also get to know how it is important to keep your promises and when somebody is stepping in for you. And this is what we discussed also today. There's been a lot of questions about implementation. There's a lot of work ahead of us in terms of being capable physically to become part of EU and being part of the internal market, because it's despite any political will, it's not possible when you do not feel the criteria. So this is the most important task for us, to be prepared, to be capable, to open all the accession chapters and clusters. And chapters and the screening process. I think that it does not require a long period of time because Ukraine is not a newcomer in European integration process. We have a 10-year experience of association agreement behind our backs, but also a multiple elements of sectoral integration which go beyond the agreement itself, which has been the most ambitious agreement ever concluded by European Union with a third party. So we are pretty well-positioned professionals in aligning ourselves with European market rule. We share both good and bad practices, and our colleagues know both about the good and the bad practices and the experiences. So the major task for us is to stay concentrated, to stay united, but also to make sure that European Commission doing its job is also helping us to ensure the proper dynamic domestically, because we do not have a decade or decades ahead of us. We are a young nation of people who stood up for its European choice 10 years ago on the Revolution of Dignity, and basically standing up on the front line here. And as I've been explaining to our colleagues, that basically transformations needed to implement this choice of the people is not something that serious that would deter us or will allow us to be the reason of any delays. And this is what we want to hear from our partners and allies. And for me, as for a person, together with all our ministries, civil society and parliament, who have been advocating enormously in the member states to mobilize this unity for every decision taken, it's very important that under Swedish presidency, Nordic and Baltic leaders have made this initiative to bring the best possible expertise to our country, to our administration, to help us advancing on this process, explaining us this process, and helping us to navigate. So, colleagues, I want to thank you for being here in person today, and you will have a very extensive amount of meetings and discussions with all your counterparts in the ministries, and I'm really happy that we are really ready to able to present you the team. So basically, I will not name the timelines, Olena. but the task number one is to make sure that we are ready for the next political decisions, and this is very important to us.
Thank you. Thank you. And on this very positive and ambitious note, Cecilia, we will move to you, because you both been member of the European Parliament, you've been Euro Commissioner in different capacities, and now you like honorable head of this delegation. I think it would be very useful to tell a little bit to our audience what is the main goal, not just of your visit, but of this structure, which now helping Ukraine and our negotiators to accelerate the process. But also it's very important for us to understand, you know, from this internal, I mean, bureaucratic perspective in Brussels. How do you feel, first of all, where should we focus in terms of like fostering a capacity, but also looking for support in Brussels in taking like difficult steps? It's not like even decisions, but steps in terms of implementing reforms.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here again. I know you have lots of questions, but you know there are several rounds. Maybe we can come back to some of the more concrete issues as well. We're very happy to be here. We are members of something called the Nordic Baltic initiatives, former commissioners. I had the enormous pleasure to be with my friends here in the Barroso Commission. They are former ministers, they are former and current ambassadors, chief negotiators, people who have experience from enlargement, from dealing with all the EU complexity and the institutions there. And we're actually here to see how we can help, discussing with the Deputy Prime Minister and with ministers to see how can we be an extra resource for you. You are negotiating with the Commission, obviously not with us, but we can come and we can coach, we can advise, we can be of support and engaging with you and trying to find out where we could be most helpful. Maybe in this initial phase where you just launched the formal negotiations, and congratulations for that. Maybe it's just more general, but then as time goes by, we could be more specific, and hopefully if you think it's useful, and this is what we will see, we are here for a long-term commitment. We are all very engaged in Ukraine, and our only agenda is for you to succeed. We are also full of admiration that you are taking these negotiations so seriously. In the middle of a war, you have a war to fight, a war that is totally unjustified, and you're standing up for your values, for your sovereignty, and also our common values for democracy, for Europe, and for the right for any country to choose its friends and its allies. And that's why when you just a few days after this full invasion handed in your application to the European Union, that really showed where you want to be and with whom you want to be. And I think that giving starting the accession talks and giving you formal status is not only a signal to Ukraine and the people who are so bravely fighting in the trenches, but it's also a very important signal to Moscow, saying that, you know, you are with us, Ukraine has made its choices and you are part of the European family. Now, all that is, of course, easy to say, but then, as you alluded to and Deputy Prime Minister said as well, it's a long task that you have in front of you. You're not newcomers. You have been dealing with the European institutions for a long time. You know how to navigate the bureaucracy. You have been doing a lot of work in the association agreement, with the visa facilitation. I was very happy to be proud of a part of that process. And you have an enormous advantage. You said that the whole negotiation team is full of lawyers. Well, so is the Commission. So, you know, you can navigate with the lawyers, but you need to have a few other voices as well. Too many lawyers, you need also to have the politicians, but I think you are living in a very concrete political reality, so you will do that. As you know, the head of the Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, was just recently reappointed by a strong vote in the European Parliament, and she is now about to form her new Commission team. We will know in a couple of weeks who gets what post. I think for you, the enlargement post is, of course, very interesting, and he or she will form her team and will engage with you. So there might seem that there is a little bit of time gap before the new commission, hopefully in November, can engage. But in the meantime, the commission delegation here and the people in Brussels are fully operational, and they will continue to work with you. There is also, of course, the geopolitical reality that we are all facing, with the war, but also increased tensions in the world. There is an election, I think, in the US later this fall, might have some implications. And this has also led to the EU and our allies to see how can we Trump safe our support to Ukraine and others. And that is ongoing discussions, both militarily, but also politically and economically, of course, discussions ongoing, and we'll see what happens there, because you are facing the war, you are facing the reconstruction at the same time, and at the same time the negotiations and the different kinds of corporations that you're already involved in. And this is difficult, but you have experience, and you know how important it is to align with the EU law. The screening process is ongoing, and you will see how you work in the different departments to align the law, first of all, setting the new laws needed, and then align them, and the implementation will be very important as well. And even if there are clusters and different chapters to be negotiated, they're all important. Some are technically extremely boring, but nevertheless very important. Others will be politically much more difficult, and you will face internal opposition, and you will face difficulties like we all have. But having this broad coalition of cooperation that you have with the civil society, with the parliament, with the opposition, and so on, will hopefully facilitate this. As you mentioned in the beginning, the most difficult issue. Well, the most difficult issues are always, for every country, the issues related to the rule of law, the fundamentals, the values, the democracy, respect for minorities, independent judiciary, anti-corruption, etc. We'll talk more about this in the coming panels. And they are difficult because they require not only reforms and laws, but also implementation, to see that they really work in practice. And this is where the Commission negotiators and member states will keep a very close eye, not only on you, but on all countries who are negotiated, because of course you contributed to really boosting new energy in the enlargement process. That was a bit sleepy, I would say, for several years. But now it has taken new momentum, and that has also forced member states, the Commission, the member states, the Parliament to focus again and to see how the methodology can be. Well, there's been a slight change of the methodology, but how it can be applied in the best possible way, and how we can support. So we are here, and we'll come back more to concrete questions. We are here to try to identify how we can help, and you can really count on our support for this. Not only this very short mission where we're here to more speed date some of you, but for a more long-term relationship, and see how we can be useful in that process that you have now embarked upon.
Thank you. Andres, I have also a very concrete question to you, but of course we would appreciate like general remarks, because your experience extremely important for Ukraine, energy development, but you also been Minister of Education and Finance, and also ambassador to EU, so like almost everything what we need. But I have a very concrete also question, if you probably elaborate on this a little bit. We heard different advices from different partners, some of them talking about acceleration in terms of like this fundamental reforms and focusing on them at the main probably benchmarks. Others saying, okay, focus on acceleration, but in terms of sectoral integration. As Olga already mentioned, we had success in many areas, and energy one of these areas. What would you suggest as a strategy for Ukraine, successful strategy for Ukraine in these circumstances?
Well, my experience stems from the process that I have been, because when I came to Brussels as a Latvia's ambassador to the EU, we have not even started the negotiations. So the first that I should say, congratulations, because it's enormous difficulty really to start negotiations. There are so many obstacles that to open the doors, it is perhaps as difficult as close. So that I demonstrates what you have already achieved at this stage. Then second issue that perhaps we have a bit neglected is this boring process of screening legal approximation. Actually, it's not a technical exercise. It's opportunity for country really to increase capacity and to modernize its state administration, approach to the citizens, approach to the new challenges that are. And I think from this point of view, I saw rather happily that you have these deputy prime ministers in each line ministry. It's definitely not sufficient, but it is rather key. And the funny thing that now the chief bureaucratic person at the European Commission, she was in Minister of Internal Affairs, this deputy prime minister, when I was still in Brussels. So, I mean, this is also opportunity to train people, really to prepare extremely good basis for the future. Even if they leave civil service to go somewhere else, they do not disappear. Their knowledge and experience help society. I think that it is. Now, for the main issues that are, I think one issue needs to be understand what the Commission can and what Commission can't do. Commission is honest broker, and it has not lost this capacity. So the staff working document about Ukraine is the one document that each and every member country will read and see as a point of departure. It's taken as a truth, but to deliver this, Commission definitely engages many stakeholders. So I think this was, at least for me, was a key issue. You really need to go to talk not only to DG Enlargement or DG NEAR or whoever is in charge, but with all the commissioners, because at the end of the day, they reflect from different areas where you are. Saying said this, what it can't do, it can't make this political opening to open the window. Because at the end of the day, enlargement process happens if member countries consider that it should be done. In this respect, we have enormous asset for the next year, Commission President, and I will quote what she said. She said, inviting countries into our union is a moral, a historical, and political responsibility. And then, in today's world, a larger union will be a stronger union. I fully agree that does each and every politician in power today agrees to this? I am not convinced, or at least I would say it's not the first priority. So one of the very important is to work with capital, that this issue in enlargement is not something about responsibility. It is also opportunity for the union. Nobody talks that, well, candidates shouldn't be well prepared. Yeah, definitely, it's in candidates' own interest to be well prepared. But it is a process that you need to open the window where the enlargement countries could come in. Because I lived through the period of regatta, where it was said that who are ready could join, and the Big Bang. That actually meant if I'm even well prepared, I need to wait for somebody who is not well prepared. So I think working with other candidates is as crucial. Because at the end of the day, or all make, minus whoever would decide to do, or none, because politically you can't open too often. So regatta works only as an intellectual concept. At the end of the day, it's political decision by member countries, and this is something that Commission can facilitate, but can't really predict. At the same time, I would say there is new advantages compared to what we have been living through. Europe is changing, and that gives an additional opportunities. For example, Ukraine made integrated energy and climate plan. That is something that member countries are now providing. There are at least 4 initiatives where I would say Ukraine could anticipate and work with. European Defence Union, Clean Industrial Deal, European Savings and Investment Union, European Democracy Shield. It's not part of key today. But why we should wait until it's part of a key? Let's find a way to be in. So, okay, in the worst case, observers. In the best case, part of the game, because that will help to open this political opportunity. And Deputy Prime Minister, you rightly said, you are very strong. You have experience from the deep and comprehensive three-day agreement, association agreement, Ukraine plan, Ukraine facility. You really have a lot of assets to make it fast. You should not really be shy saying, well, we make ourselves ready. You should be ready, well, in your own speed. We can't push, but we can push ourselves. If we don't push, then we will be missing an opportunity because we have a lot of resources. And I will conclude with something that you need to consider and I could indicate immediately. You need to anticipate. In our case, we have been small team and we understood where our difficulty will come. And it's not so much of, well, we have a couple of problems, yeah. But the biggest problem definitely is money. It's always about it because there are two issues. There is never enough money to be very fair in accession. So you need to find a good compromise where your people believe that the deal is still fair. Well, it's not completely fair, to be honest, but they understand that it is the best you can get. And then the other part is giving enough that you would say, well, it is doable. Mm-hmm. And for this, financial framework is a key. It's decided now will be 2028, 2034. So, or you are already in, or at least you are as a bookmark, while that there will be midterm review and enlargement issues will be considered then. I would say that would be lower common denominator. Because if you are not at all in this discussion, then it's 2035 at earliest, because I don't expect that could you ever reopen financial framework, whatever issue, because opening financial framework is really nightmarish. So when member countries have concluded it, they stay with it, they stick with it, and some adjustment could be if you anticipate it. So I believe this is one, at least, the issues that you really need to be very much focused and trying really to see the end game, because it demonstrates preparation at home, and it's actually what you will talk with your partners very honestly, how it could look like, because they need to think about as well. And the good news that Bruegel publication and Cecilia made group, it reflects on these issues, good or bad, but they are doing this. So there are some basis to discuss these extremely difficult and political issues, at least in principle, even at the same time doing other important things, what you are doing, and they should be done, no question about it.
Thank you so much. Before we will move on to a very important issue on budgets and finances, I saw that Deputy Prime Minister wanted to react.
I wanted, but then I saw the smiles of my team and I understood that they got the message that we do not have to be shy.
Okay, thank you. On this positive note, we will move to Algirdas, and I think that that's directly you made. You're already working as a team. You made this bridge to very important, even though maybe boring but very important issue of budget, finances, and how we are going to make it. Because in the very end of the day, a lot of the reforms are very painful, and they will definitely, in such a big country, in the middle of the war, we will need a lot of resources. So you've been working a lot with finances, taxation, and budgets. It would be very useful to listen from you some advices, but of course, first of all, for the general remarks, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm the one who worked here in Ukraine for 5 years as the first business ombudsman of Ukraine. So I know a little bit situation in the country from inside. And I'm happy to be here again and try to contribute to your really extremely difficult but extremely valuable and extremely important step, accession to the European Union. And Before going into some details, I would like to say a few words more in general terms. I think that accession, it has kind of three most important dimensions. It's technical dimension, political dimension, and mentality dimension. And I think that you did a lot already in the area of in the technical dimension side. Even when I worked here in Ukraine, I presented Ukraine as example, for example, who opened its registers. European Union at that time didn't have open registers, and you did it before European Union. You also adopted, I think, state-of-the-art anti-corruption laws. You also have excellent public procurement system, ProZorro. So, but anyway, in all these areas which I mentioned, there is still plenty of work. So, and that is a big issue, that adoption of the good, excellent legislation is not enough. It's actually, what is necessary that this new legislation is accepted by the people and becomes part of their everyday life. And that is most difficult part. I can give you an example. For example, my wife 20 years ago, she thought that, you know, driving without seat belts, fasten seat belt, it's okay for, and she even could argue against police that, you know, it's inconvenient to drive without fasten seat belt. But nowadays, no one argues that fastening seat belt is something wrong. It took just 20 years, you know, to change the mentality of people in this country. So with this, I want to show that it's really a big mental change. And what is important in this area, that you don't start a process of blaming EU for the imposition of certain rules. I should not hide that this phenomenon happens sometime in the European Union, not sometimes, quite frequently. That member states, politicians in the member states, they say to the public, look, it's not we, it's the Commission, European Union, who imposed this law, and now you suffer from it. But the truth is that each legislation in European Union is adopted by the member states, so they adopt the legislation. And most of it also has to be adopted by the European Parliament. So also where member states are represented there. So it's sort of member states' child, and not that European Union or Commission imposes anything on the member state. And of course, during the accession process, you will have to go through the very difficult part. You mentioned public finances, and of course, your current budget deficit is far beyond the 3% threshold, which is actually public subject for public excessive deficit procedure. And of course, it will be a very difficult task taking into account the war, the outcomes of the war, to balance the budget position with the real needs of the country. So on this, I think we will have to work very closely and find innovative ways how to address this issue. But then, of course, there is a political dimension, which also has two sides. First side, of course, it's very important to find a consensus among political parties in the country, and I'm happy that at least at the moment both position and opposition, I think they agree on the way Ukraine should go ahead. But you know, the life is going on, and I think it's very important to maintain this consensus until not only until Ukraine joins European Union, but beyond that, it helps a lot to progress in the accession process. But political dimension is not only about Ukraine, but also about the European Union and its member states. And I think it's very important to get support of the in member states among politicians and within the society. And here I think it would be good to find one or two reasons why Ukraine is needed more for Europeans than Europe for Ukraine. It's not an easy task, but I think one could work on this. I mean that you find areas where Ukraine is such strong that it really could contribute very positively to the European Union as a union. And my final remark, you know, we Lithuanians, we were Latvians and Estonians, we are lucky that we seized that opportunity, favorable opportunity or window of opportunity to become members of the European Union in 2004. Of course, we did all our homework, and when opportunity appeared, we said, yes, we want to become members. So I wish that Ukraine does the same. It prepares its homework extremely well, and when the favorable conditions appear, that they become able to join the European Union.
Thank you for your remarks. I would probably argue only one thing, that it is hard to find positive angles why EU needs Ukraine, because there are plenty of them. Like we can start from security and finish with agriculture, for example. I'm sorry, but we are more efficient than many other member states, and I think that it is like could be deep discussion. Tomorrow you will have bilaterals and you will discuss with our colleagues, but for sure I think that's very important narrative also for you to advocate, because it's absolutely clear why EU needs Ukraine, but maybe it's also important to explain to Ukrainians why we need EU and what does it mean for Ukrainians.
Yeah, my point was that I didn't say that I do not see areas where Ukraine is really needed for EU. My point was that you have to sell it properly to the European Union, to the society of member states, that these are real positive inputs towards the development of the Union.
You will see now how in 2 minutes Olga will sell it in the best way. She's always doing this the best, but probably I would like also to ask Deputy Prime Minister, like I think it's for the first time after the intergovernmental conference when we have in the room, you know, almost all the stakeholders and participants of the process. Mainly it's your army for the future, you know, for the future fight, even with some bureaucracy and fatigue and maybe political will, etc. What do you feel like it's important to say to these people, and how do you want to work with them personally as a chief negotiator, because it's going to be a very complex exercise?
I'm sorry, but it's gonna sound very funny, right? First, I've already touched the base with some of the key negotiators on our side and some of the members of the parliament, and we already have this narrative growing that, you know, it's like European Union and Brussels to blame for all these kind of things which accidentally cause or not cause public debate in a society. And I've been saying three things to our partners, right? First thing is that European integration is the key glue for the unity of society, of a nation. It's one of the key sources of our energy that keeps us literally alive and capable of coping with everything we see, all the horrors and the crimes and the war and the atrocities of the war we see. So, and we will never ever forget many bad things which happened to us throughout the war, but we will never ever forget a good thing, that it was all 27 EU member states to be the first to say that Ukraine will be a member of European Union when Russian soldiers were still standing around Kyiv. Second, it was 27 EU member states who said this phrase the whole world has been repeating a million of times, that we will stand with you as long as it takes. I remember it very well. I saw these words, and these were principal to us. So these are the things which will never be forgotten. And since then, it is the major source of energy for our people, because we know that what comes after the war will be over, Ukraine will overcome, and this new historical breakthrough will happen. Just like Berlin Wall has fallen, just like Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine will win, and the new beginning of the European development will start. And it's very important that we know that our job is to win, you know, and you will deliver on your part of the job. That brings me to my second point. Second point, what I communicate to our colleagues from the government and from the parliament and from the civil society, from whoever in Ukraine, when we're talking about the architecture of the European process and prioritizing these or that things in the government, I say that it's a train. And this train is going to move through the railway anyway. And it's only your choice that you jump onto the train or you jump in and go through this way with us. And I mean, this is a very simple understanding. And it's not something radical, it's just the reality as it is. This train will be going not because the European Union is leading us throughout the way. It's because it's the choice of the people. I mean, every Ukrainian and every European knows what happens to those who try to make a wrong turn and not to lead this train to European integration. As now every soldier knows, you know, doing their job, and we all doing this job. And this, I mean, brings me to the funny part. And it's like nothing, like, it's just an accidental game of the words, meaning that all of us doing this job, we're just servants of the people. Like, you know, so we're really servants of the people's choice, and as long as we're capable to deliver on that and be successful in that together as an administration, but also as the European bureaucracy, this is a highest way of serving, because we serve the interests of the people, we serve the choice of the people, and this will always be important, and people really capable of coping many things, just knowing that, of course, they are not digging into this, you know, nitty-gritty of technicalities. They do not care about which chapter we open and close. They only care that things are going according to the plan. And Europe is still with us, and it will still be there. And it's really important that it is repeated and repeated. But as I've been saying now, the background job to have this positive dynamics is much deeper, much wider, and much more comprehensive. So that's why basically the key rules are very simple, and the commitment and political energy to deliver on that is still there. But the most complicated part is the technical part, because now you cannot make things work just by a smaller group of people. This is a whole country, whole nation exercise, starting from negotiating, implementing, then delivering, and then feeling it. So there's a long way to go, but for us, it's going to be pretty short.
Thank you. Thank you. Cecilia, as far as you can see, we have very clear vision how we're going to do, but still, it's true that there are several very complicated exercises. And here I want to come back to trade. Because still trade, it's finances, it's blood of our economy, and it is very important how we are going to build this from the very beginning. So I remember very well these times of free trade agreement and working with you that days when I was a member of the parliament and Olga was working in the government. So it was like difficult exercise, I would say, and tough negotiations. So now when you can a little bit step down from, your position as the European Commissioner and tell us a little bit more from maybe insights. How would you suggest us to build our strategy now in order to strengthen our position and really to build fair trade relationships with the EU and of course accelerate our integration as fast as possible?
Well, thank you. That is indeed a very important area, and but here you have the DCFTA, which is in place. It is functioning. It was hard negotiations to put it in place, and it led to a lot of geopolitical consequences. But it was a very good exercise for the European Union because we learned a lot about the Ukrainian economy. But also for you, I think, because you had to align already at that stage with a lot of the rules and the regulations on the internal market, because the DCFTA gives you access to basically everything on the internal market, and that has worked rather well. Now we have the war and we have the limitations and so on, but it has sort of integrated the EU and the Ukrainian markets with each other to a much further extent than it would otherwise. So that is there. There's still work to do on the alignment on some of the non-tariff barriers, which is about safety. It's about food safety. It's about standards. It's about processes. It's about certifications and permits. Boring things, but super important for the companies to facilitate. And in that process, I remember that you did consult a lot with big business, with small companies, and so on, so to prepare them for doing business in the European Union. And that is, ongoing. So you must build upon that, because that is good. You don't have to redo or change that. Just improve where it's not good enough. And I would say there's a lot of on the rulings, on the standards that still needs to be made. Then, of course, there has been new laws coming up. A lot of them will be related to environment, and that is why it's so important, as both my friends here said, that you integrate not only the trade department needs to work with the environmental department and the economy department, or whatever they are called, and who is responsible, because that is a very, very important part. Ukraine and the EU are big trading partners already. It has potential to improve. We know that has been some tensions in the agriculture area, but it is also an area where the EU imports a lot from Ukraine, where you have things that are of interest to European consumers, and where you could definitely build upon that. Ukraine is a great power in agriculture. I think there will be more discussions on that later today. And that is also bringing food safety issues to the European Union in times when these things are discussed. But the whole agriculture, the whole trade issue is being sort of, the greening of trade is very much important there as well. I know that there are some concerns about CBAM, the Carbon Border and Adjustment Mechanism, and how that will affect. We could talk more about that with the ministry tomorrow. How that will affect your trading with the European Union. I know that there are technical discussions going on, not only with Ukraine, but lots of people are concerned about how to align with this. So, just throw yourself open, build upon the good things that are already there, maybe the 80%, and then try to see what's new in the acquis, how is trade developing, and then your own trade relations, because once you become member of the European Union, all the trade agreements that we have with other countries, you become automatic member of those as well. And that's work that has not been done yet to see how they can be adjusted to the EU trade agreements. Now, not a lot of trade agreements have been done lately. There's also a wave of protectionism that we see in the world and trade wars and so on, and that has, of course, also affected the European Union. There's a lot of potential also to move up on the value chain ladder, so to say. You have also, because of the war, developed a lot of innovative small industries in the digital sector, in the e-commerce sector, and how you can unite technology with your military needs, but also in facilitating the functioning of a society that is under this threat. And this is impressive. You can really bring that knowledge and scale it up into the European Union, also in the digital trade, in the e-commerce, and so on. So building upon those experiences will facilitate this process, I think.
Thank you. Andres, probably I will ask you also to be short just to get some questions from the audience, but that's very important. You know that now, because of the war, we are on the edge of almost survival and of the energy sector. And it is vital for us, to keep going, just to keep going, to survive as a country. And of course, on this stage and in this situation, it is very hard to balance some standards and expectations in the sector, and then this survival mood. So, what would be your advices in terms of balancing this in negotiations and setting up the priorities, and building the argument for European Commission, but also for member states?
To be honest, I don't see so much problem with negotiations, because in energy sector, actually, acquis is well transposed. So unbundling is being done. So it's a lot of things that are very politically difficult has been behind. But it's completely new situation where really enemy targetedly destroys energy infrastructure. So what is needed, definitely, first of all, the restoration of power to the people. They need to have support for basic news. And I think there will be no question. But the real intellectual challenge is how to put money in a system that will serve you later on. So that means decentralized generation. So that I'm not saying against generators that you need to install, but when you invest, you need to invest that could last after the war as well. So it's not short-term measure only. You need to do measures that serves today and will serve tomorrow. Perhaps they cost 10% more. Perhaps do it. And this is where I believe Europe, with Team Europe, European Commission, also the Ukraine Fund will definitely help, because everybody understands that is an absolutely crucial priority for the people, but also for economic growth of the country. So there is no contradiction with the key. As I see, it is really how to establish systems that responds to best to the resilience, and at the same time, it will be also very good for environmental system, because resilience and environmental goes very well together. It's decentralized, it's renewable sources, it's digitalization. There are many elements that comes in. And additional, where Ukraine also doing a lot is energy efficiency. People need to be wise how to use energy wisely, and support also people that they need to pay less for energy efficiency measures where are they cost efficient. So it's doable, but it's a huge effort, and definitely experts from EU, the best experts also from Ukraine, need to work day on day really to restore energy, but restore in a look a bit forward, not just for tomorrow, but that will serve also in 2050.
Thank you. Last but not least, because you've been the first ombudsman, business ombudsman in Ukraine, and business is going to be a big part of negotiations. What would be probably your also suggestions how we should build this platform? Because we have a lot of very active, small, medium, and of course big businesses, different interests, a lot of reforms. Like in the future, and some of them they are going to be painful. How to build this dialogue?
I know that business community in Ukraine is very active, and I'm glad that they continue to use business ombudsman services for the defense of their legitimate rights. And I think by involving those major business associations into the dialogue, involving
that's what we're already doing.
Businesses which have dual experience, Ukrainian experience and EU experience, who could somehow practically show where are the loopholes. That is, I think, very helpful in terms of understanding where the real loopholes are in specific areas, and you have plenty of major companies which are situated do business both here in Ukraine and do business in European Union, and I think that could be also very valuable input in your preparation.
Thank you. That's very useful advice. And now I will open the floor to the audience. Colleagues, you have an opportunity to ask the questions. So I can see our ladies with micros. Please raise your hands if you have any. Okay. Here in the second row.
Thank you very much. My name is Olha Pavlenko. I'm from Dixie Group, an energy think tank, and had a pleasure to cooperate with Mr. Piebalgs on energy issues. But my question will be wider. So Nordic Baltic states know very well all the threats which we feel and have from Russia. But what we feel is quite a less and less attention from other countries of the European Union to what's happening in Ukraine. We still have a lot of political level, but less and less people on the ordinary level are discussing Ukraine because they are discussing their own issues. So maybe you would share your thoughts how we should keep the high attention both at political level, also at the level of ordinary people to Ukraine's accession and need to accept Ukraine even if we are not ideal from what some politicians are saying. And the second question, you may not respond. I just try to do a small provocation. There was an article from the former British Prime Minister. I forgot, Boris Johnson, sorry. So he had a proposition on how to solve the war. Your thoughts on that? Again, you might not respond if you want. It's just a provocation on my side. Thanks.
Who want to answer?
Well, not on the second. I don't have a solution, unfortunately. No, I can understand this feeling that Ukraine is moving away from the head news. There's so much else happening in the world. But my friend Lykke, who will speak later, maybe she can refer to that. But there are regular polls ongoing on the support towards Ukraine. And it is surprisingly high and surprisingly constant all over Europe. It's not only the Balkans. I think Spain is topping, right? Yeah, she'll come back to that. Spain is top of the list, actually. So it is there, even if it's not being spoken about, because unfortunately, you know that, there is a kind of normality also entering on this when there are not big things happening. But it is constant. We should not hide the fact that there was an increase of political parties in the European Parliament elections who are against everything. And among them, they're not very pro-Ukrainian, with a few exceptions. And they are there. They are vocal. They are making a lot of noise, but that is not the majority. The majority of the citizens, of the governments, of the ministers are very supportive to Ukraine. And they will remain so, even if they maybe speak a little bit less about it on an everyday basis. And the only thing you can do, and I think your president is doing a marvelous work in the way that he's touring and keeping the attention on doing that. But what you can do is exactly what you're doing here. Keep on doing the work, keep on implementing, keep on working on the boring alignment and implementation of the reforms, and keep on, making the case why Ukraine is important for Europe as well, because you are. So there's no magic wand here, but the support is still very, very strong. I can assure you that, and we will all help to make sure that is still the case.
Yeah, I could confirm what Cecilia is saying. The support is 100%, at least in Latvia, behind Ukraine, whatever. So it's not so outspoken so often as it used to be. But it's also true that you can't do it. But I believe what is also important that diplomatic arm of all this accession tries really to make more visibility, to meet people. Just to give an example, we have now new European Parliament. We have some parts really bad, in my opinion, but some parts are excellent. So use them really to promote your case. And there are champions that will be ready to do it. So through them, you really could really put enough pressure towards the ones that are vocal, saying, well, we don't care or whatever. Because I think you can't leave these bad voices in the space. So you need other voices as well, because otherwise they will take there will be wrong perception, not that it will reflect the truth. And about the peace, I believe that all the pressure against Russia should be done. And sometimes I'm very proud about Europe, but sometimes I would say we are hesitant. Like with gas imports from Russia, we could survive. There would be no major perturbation in the market. But we are all the time, well, perhaps what will happen, because keeping pressure on Russia is the only way to stop war over, and support for Ukraine is the other thing. But keeping pressure on Russia, that they feel the heat for what they are doing and what they have done.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah. And I think about support from Lithuania, I think I could say the same as my Latvian colleague. You have 100 support from both at the political and society level. So this is really not a question in my country, but of course it's somewhere there is a question. And I have some practical proposal. You get a lot of technical assistance. You have a lot of technical assistance projects, and I think it would be quite useful to put more emphasis on communication component in the EU member states when important reforms are implemented in the country. For example, today we listened to the briefing about anti-corruption reforms. And I think it would be really very important when you implement something really major, that this is communicated by that team, which not only by you, but the team which prepared, which includes experts from EU member states. Then, of course, the trust that these are reforms, they are really targeted, then will become much bigger.
Thank you. I think that this question was very logical in terms of our next panel about advocacy and positioning. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you, Sweden, Lithuania and Latvia, for these great assets to our team. We definitely will continue our cooperation and our work together, and we appreciate for you being here and talking with our ministers and other stakeholders. Deputy Prime Minister, if you want just to make a bridge from this panel to another one, we are going to talk about advocacy. How do you see the participants of civil society, activists, business, and of course political representatives in Brussels, and what would you expect in terms of coordination?
Thank you so much, Olena, and colleagues. Indeed, the whole day will be insightful today. I have already a lot of thoughts from our morning meeting and from today's panel. And I think the major challenge we do not have, and the one which were there with the other enlargement in the other country, is the capacity. So the capacity is about only structuring. The capacity is there and really strong. We do not have that much challenges related to business community because Ukraine is among top 20 importers to European Union. We are already largely integrated into EU market. We have other challenges related to the war, but I think the biggest challenge at this particular point for us and for me as a chief negotiator would be coordination, because you should coordinate at the level of the heads of states and at the level of the smallest documents circulating to Brussels from a expert on a very sectoral and specific thing in charge of the potato cancer regulations, right? And this is not changing until the very last day when the decision on accession is taking place, and it means that we have to build the architecture of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, coordinated by dozens and dozens, and then leaded by one person. And I think this is the major challenge we would face. But I have a thing to say following Olena's provocative question. It's, in fact, this is the first time ever in my life I see Olena asking a questions not about energy. You know, you can have, I mean, all the top leaders, the Munich Security Conference or at Halifax, all the generals sitting, and she would still be asking about energy. And I know what happened, but maybe I have a smaller answer to you, Olena. In Buddhism, there is a notion of the circle of samsara. Is the endless circle of life and death as which you go through until you are relieved from all the burdens you had in your life and you reach the other level called nirvana, right? So, and the moment of our history we are going through is the end of this samsara circle. Our nation has died and was born so many times that this is the very last circle, and whoever could help us and whoever want to help us are those who understand how existential the circle of history is now in this particular moment. So whether it's former Prime Minister Boris Johnson or any other person who puts ideas on the table in the best spirit, energy, and knowledge and vision he has, it's really important. So we have a memorized Boris as a big friend of ours, and he is such, and he will remain such, and he one of not many visionaries in this continent who can do something and whose words are matters, and he's the brave one, and Ukrainians love such ones.
Thank you. On this positive notes, we want to thank you for these inputs, insights, and hope for the future work together. Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, colleagues. We're not going to have any breaks, and we will move on to another panel immediately.